All right, let's get right into it. We hear all the time about the promise of blockchain, right? But what happens when the tools we use to actually access all that data start to look, well, a lot like the centralized web we were trying to get away from? This explainer is all about a project called TrueBlocks, which is trying to solve that exact problem, right from the very foundation.
And really, it all kicks off with this incredibly powerful mission statement from its founder, Thomas J. Rush. See, this isn't just about building a better data tool. It's about looking back at what went wrong and trying to get it right this time around.
So, to really get why TrueBlocks is so radically different, we first have to take a step back and look at what went wrong with the original dream of the web. This timeline tells such a critical story. The early web, the dream was this peer-to-peer utopia. Everyone would run their own server, publishing their own stuff directly. But the hardware back then just couldn't keep up, so we shifted to this client-server model. And before we knew it, massive platforms swooped in and captured the whole ecosystem, turning us from creators into the product. That decentralized dream was basically lost to companies whose entire business model was about monetizing our data.
And here's the kicker. We're seeing the exact same pattern playing out right now in the blockchain world. Most of our access to on-chain data runs through a handful of centralized API providers. We're literally building the same single points of failure, the same systems that can be captured and censored all over again.
TrueBlocks saw this coming from a mile away, so they designed a completely different approach, an architecture built from the ground up specifically to resist being captured.
And when you put them side by side, the difference is, well, it's night and day. Instead of centralized servers that you just have to trust, TrueBlocks is local first. The data lives right on your machine. Instead of being slow and getting rate limited, it's blazing fast. And here's the most important part. Instead of the data provider having to carry this huge burden, the system is designed so that we, the users, help share the little bits of the index we use. That makes it naturally resilient and really, really hard to censor.
So how do they pull this off? Well, it all comes down to a few really clever core principles. By breaking the index into tiny shareable chunks on a system like IPFS, it's decentralized by its very nature. When you access data, you automatically help host it for other people. And the best part? The recipe for the entire index is stored on-chain, so you never ever have to trust the provider. You can always verify it and rebuild it yourself. It's a totally trustless, user-powered model.
So that's the how, the architecture. But what about the data itself? This is where TrueBlocks has another major innovation.
The fundamental piece of data in the TrueBlocks world is something they call an appearance. Now, this isn't just a transaction. Think of it as a record of every single time an address shows up, anywhere on the chain, for any reason at all. And this is so key because most data providers, they take a shortcut. They only look for addresses in the obvious, easy-to-find places, like the to and from fields in a transaction.
But TrueBlocks is, as its creator says, purposefully sloppy. It's designed to be over-inclusive. It digs through all the hidden, implicit spots. We're talking transaction input data, log topics, trace fields, even mining rewards and staking withdrawals. It scans everywhere an address might possibly be hiding. And that means it finds data that pretty much everyone else misses.
Okay, that's a pretty bold claim, isn't it? To say that you find data no one else does. Well, they didn't just talk the talk. They actually put it to the test in a head-to-head showdown. What they did was, they took nearly 700 different addresses and queried their entire histories using TrueBlocks and 3 of the biggest names in the space, Alchemy, Covalent, and Etherscan. And the results are, they're just staggering. TrueBlocks found over 120,000 appearances that the other 3 providers completely missed. Now, flip that around. The number of unique appearances the other providers found that TrueBlocks didn't, a big fat 0. And get this, for 506 of these addresses, that's 73% of the whole sample, TrueBlocks was the only provider that could find their complete history.
This bar chart really says it all, doesn't it? It isn't a small difference. It's a massive, gaping chasm in data completeness. Over 120,000 unique data points found only by TrueBlocks, and 0 found by any other provider. It is just that stark.
Now, I know what you might be thinking. Okay, sure, it's more data, but is it just noise? Does it matter? And the answer is a resounding no. Of those unique appearances, nearly 1,200 of them involved a material change in an address's ETH balance. This isn't trivial stuff. This is financially significant information that you absolutely need for accurate accounting.
The experiment was just brutal. They found that not a single other provider could find even one legitimate appearance that TrueBlocks had missed.
It was a complete and total clean sweep.
And this brings us right back to the original mission. See, this isn't just an academic exercise in finding more data points. It's about fulfilling the fundamental promise of what this technology is supposed to be.
Blockchains are, at their core, perfect ledgers. Every 12 seconds, Ethereum reconciles hundreds of millions of accounts with absolute 18 decimal place precision. So why is it almost impossible for us to do that same perfect accounting off-chain with the tools we have today? It just shouldn't be this hard.
And that leads us to the question that's really at the heart of this entire project. What the hell are we even building if we can't account for every single way, the smallest possible unit of Ether for every single account? If our tools are incomplete, it just undermines the very trust and transparency the system is supposed to be built on.
Ultimately, TrueBlocks is more than a tool. It's a blueprint for a different path. It's an attempt to learn from the mistakes of Web 2.0 and to build a truly decentralized, user-owned, and perfectly accurate way to access blockchain data. A system that, hopefully, this time, doesn't suck.